The opinions expressed by the host and guests in this show are not necessarily the views of Children's Health Defense.
Good morning, CHD. It is Monday, February the 2nd, 2026. We're live here at CHD TV. We have a great show for you today. In a second, we're going to be bringing on Brian Hooker, our Chief Scientific Officer. Then we're going to go to Julie Matthews. And many of you writing in asking for help in the unvaccinated community with picky eaters, particularly boys. We're going to be talking to Julie about that. And then we're going to go and talk to a mother, Christine, about autism after the Meningococcal, vaccine, which is, I don't think we've done a story like this before. So we're going to be doing that straight after. So for now, let's take this headline up first before we bring Brian on. This headline from The Defender. It says, Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s new autism advisors set sights on many unanswered questions. Brian, welcome to the show this morning.
Good morning, Polly. How are you?
Fine. Tell us about that article, Unanswered Questions with Autism. What's that about?
Well, there are now 21 new advisors on the Interagency Autism Coordinating Committee for the HHS. And there are so many questions regarding, the etiology of autism, life with autism, life especially with, somebody that would be considered low functioning. And these individuals, have been handpicked. They've been, in the trenches. Many of them, if not most, either have autistic children or autistic themselves. Two of them are spellers. Cade Larson and Elizabeth Bonker are both spellers. And, they have such a unique perspective. These kids have been locked in their bodies for years and years and years. They know what it's like to be underestimated. They know what it's like to be looked over, to not be smiled at, when they're greeted in public, just to, basically be invisible. And so there's so many issues that need to be addressed, not only from the standpoint of causation. I mean, we know that obviously vaccines play a huge role in autism etiology. Tylenol plays a huge role in autism etiology. Glyphosate plays a huge role. There are environmental stressors that started in the late 1980s, early 1990s. We know what they are. But the NIH, the CDC, and the FDA have never appropriately looked at these. So I'm very, very excited about the new composition of IAC, the Interagency Autism Coordinating Committee for HHS. And I'm looking forward to them looking at things that have needed to be looked at for years. But we've had a CDC that's essentially been asleep at the switch all these years committing fraud and malfeasance, trying to hide the fact that vaccines do cause autism.
Absolutely. Brian, tell us about this paper. It's very exciting. So I think what everyone's hanging on to hear about.
Well, we just released a new paper this morning. It is about aluminum adjuvants, autoimmunity, and autism spectrum disorders. And this is a comprehensive analysis. We've looked at the biochemical mechanisms, the neuropathology, and also looked at legal arguments, what's called the Bradford Hill criteria, to show causation between a stressor like an environmental stressor and a condition like autism. This is an exhaustive analysis. And what we've done, Polly, is we've worked our way back. We know based on a paper that came out in 2019. It was a prestigious paper. It came out of Harvard University, Harvard Medical School, by Matthew Anderson. It's D'Stasio et al. And Dr. Anderson was the principal investigator on the study. And it showed that essentially, there was brain damage in specific regions involving a cell type called astrocytes in autism, and it was seen in a plurality of autistic cadavers, but it was not seen in neurotypical cadavers whatsoever. And so what we've done is we've worked our way back from that damage, and we've shown how that damage specifically can be caused by aluminum adjuvants in vaccines. We followed the aluminum atom as a part of the adjuvant, aluminum hydroxide or aluminum sulfate. We followed that its trajectory to the brain. We followed how it causes inflammation. We followed how the inflammation causes neuroinflammation, and then how that neuroinflammation recruits a cell type called T cells. And those T cells actually get into brain cells, get into what's called the white matter of the brain, and will specifically go after a cell type called astrocytes. The astrocytes actually die within the brain tissue and undergo a process called blebbing, where they produce these small little extracellular particles. Those blebs then, or essentially dead cell particles, then cause a feedback loop that feeds back into the system, and it begets more damage and more damage and more damage caused in autistic disorder. We've linked this to biochemistry, to genetics, to cell physiology, and to epidemiology to basically show, we've wanted this to be the definitive research paper showing, yes, there is an inextricable link between aluminum adjuvants in vaccines and the autistic condition.
This is phenomenal. This is something that, actually, to be fair, Brian, you've been talking about for a very long time, but now you've just proved it. I got a couple of questions for you. Number one, do all vaccines have aluminum adjuvants in?
No, not all vaccines contain aluminum adjuvants, but the majority of vaccines on the schedule do have aluminum adjuvants in them. Live virus vaccines like the MMR and the varicella vaccine do not contain aluminum. But, Polly, one of the things I want to stress is aluminum is one way that you can elicit the autistic condition, but it's not the only way. We're producing a second paper right now about live virus vaccines. That second paper, we want to make sure it comes out this spring, and it shows how live virus vaccines, in combination with other environmental stressors, can cause autism as well. Okay, so we don't want to say aluminum is the only thing. No, not by any stretch of the imagination. That doesn't factor in other stressors like live virus vaccines, like glyphosate, like Tylenol. We need to look at all of those. But aluminum is used in so many vaccines, and the aluminum concentration that an infant is exposed to right now using the CDC schedule, even the modified CDC schedule, it's just way, way too much.
Yeah, right. I'm going to talk about Billy for a second. So,
Yes.
Okay, he was injured by the MMR, but he had the DTP, which is back. Would that have had aluminum in? That's
Yes,
not
the DTP had aluminum in it, and the DTaP has aluminum in it.
right, and the hip. So he has three of those lots, which could have done any kind of damage, and then whatever's in the MMR is just a trigger on the top. So just because the MMR didn't have aluminum in it doesn't mean to say that aluminum didn't play a part in Billy's demise to vaccine-induced autism.
Absolutely. What we know now is that the more stress, the more oxidative stress that these contaminants cause on the body, the worse the body does. And we're actually seeing that there's a very, very quick regression that happens after the insult, happens after the vaccine or vaccines and paracetamol or acetaminophen use. There's a very, very quick regression, but there's also a very, very slow regression that happens after that. My son was losing skills. His biggest regression happened 3 weeks after his vaccines, but he continued to lose skills for about 2 years after that and before it actually stopped. So, things don't just come to a halt. I do believe that autism in some ways is neurodegenerative. It's not just neurological or neuroimmunological, but there is a degenerative component that needs to be looked at. But CDC has put all of this research on hold for over 20 years, perhaps more like 30 years, because they've been so fixated in indemnifying vaccines and making sure nobody found the connection between vaccines and autism.
So we just heard that MMR, whatever, live vaccines do not have aluminum, but the other vaccines. So if Bobby then says, right, okay, I'm taking aluminum out, it's super toxic, it's not happening anymore. Can they still make these vaccines without aluminum in?
They would need an alternative adjuvant, which I know researchers are looking at right now. Aluminum is toxic. It does not belong in the body. It is not a native mineral in the body. There are other adjuvants that involve calcium, calcium phosphate, calcium sulfate, that have been successfully used in the past in vaccines. But my thought is that whatever it is, it has to be tested to the nines. We can't just swap something out hastily and say, "Oh, here, we've fixed the problem." We need to make sure that there's appropriate testing. And there are so many contaminants in our environment. There are so many contaminants within the vaccination schedule that, so many things need to be looked at. That's why we're excited about IAC. That's why we're excited about the Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices, ACIP, because so many things still need to be looked at.
Right. And just in case people are wondering, when we're talking about, oh, can there be something safe to be put? Brian and I, well, I'm not going to speak for you, Brian, but I certainly, as you all know, there is no such thing as a safe and effective vaccine. And in my mind, there never will be. So just so you all know, keep that absolutely out there. I am never, ever going to be saying, oh, this is safe, guys. So no, we don't
I
need
have to agree with you 100%, Polly. I just don't see anything that's come out that's been a quote unquote vaccine that has a safety profile that I would ever accept for my own child or for anybody else's child. I just don't see that thing exists. If it did exist, I would be the first to tell you, and I would say, yeah, this is safe and effective. But first of all, every child is different. Every child presents, their genetics, their biochemistry, their neurology differently. And so a one size fits all vaccination schedule absolutely does not work. Second of all, vaccines have a poor, at best, track record. And they've shown damage over the years. I'm writing a book with John Michael Dumais about the catastrophe of vaccination over the years. And as we peel back the veneer, looking back as early as those, quote unquote successes like smallpox, polio, diphtheria, we just see a trail of tears. We see so much death. We see so much carnage that is associated with these vaccines, and a lot of smoke and mirror that would support the notion that these vaccines have ever been safe or effective.
Now, Brian, what is next with this? So with this paper, it's just out. It's very exciting. Super hard work done in the science department. What happens now? What do you want the people to do?
Well, we want to spread the word. The paper has been posted on zenodo.org, zenodo.org. You can look up the authors, you can look up the title and bring up that paper. I've posted it on X myself and have tagged CHD TV Live as well as Children's Health Defense. So they're going to be getting it out today. So please, please, please spread the word. I'm going to be on Jimmy Dore today at 6:30 p.m. Eastern time. So I'll be talking about the paper there. We want everybody to pick up this paper. We want everybody to read this paper. We want this paper critiqued. We believe that it will withstand the scrutiny. We are publishing it, getting ready to submit it into a peer-reviewed journal. And so therefore, when you post something on Zenodo, it hasn't been peer reviewed yet, but this is such important information. We want to get it out very quickly. It will undergo the peer review process. Any updates to the paper will also be posted on Zenodo in the days to come.
So Brian Hooker is on Jimmy Dore later, which is fantastic. Everyone tune in, but broke the news here on CHD TV.
Totally.
Keep
Got to
changing
do it here first.
Lou, just,
Absolutely.
just put that up again, the paper that you just put up. I want those authors. They are like, that is an all-star studied cast.
Hmm.
James Schwander, absolutely love him. Carl, of course, amazing. Martha Herbert. These are people, Heather Ray, Christopher Shaw, etc. These are people that have been in the game a long time. This is top brains of the brains you've got together on that.
We're so fortunate to have, this cast of scientists who volunteered to do this, and it took no arm twisting whatsoever. These are people who are committed to get the truth out. I mean, we've got James Neuenschwander, who's the head of MAPS. And MAPS is doing wonderful job for treatment of autism and neurodevelopmental disorders. Martha Herbert from Harvard University Medical School, who's also now continuing to do her research through Life University. She's relocated to Nashville, Tennessee. And then Chris Shaw, I mean, amazing. He's been an aluminum researcher extraordinaire for so many years.
Yeah, but this is sterling work, and thank you to all of you out there that donate to the science department because it's because of you that this study is out. So thank you to them. Right. Okay, viewers, have you heard of Dr. Delman? Have you heard of Dr. Delman, everybody? Right, Brian, tell us who Dr. Delman is.
Well, her name is Dr. Dana Meanie Delman.
Is she really called
And
Meanie? Is she called
she
Meanie? She's a
it's
meanie.
it's right there in the name. I mean, I don't
I
poke
can't
fun
make
at
it up.
people's names because, the obvious, my name, but this one fits the bill. I'm sorry. She is the acting director of the National Center for Birth Defects and Developmental Disabilities, and she's a vaccinologist, Polly. She's an OBGYN who has done extensive work promoting vaccines, promoting Zika, promoting RSV vaccine, promoting the COVID shot during pregnancy. And by the way, the RSV during pregnancy, which, I believe is unconscionable. And she has absolutely not a shred of experience with birth defects or developmental disabilities. She needs to be out of there now, absolutely, as of yesterday. There are so many people who are so well qualified who care for these children. This is a woman who cares about the vaccination schedule, and that is absolutely it. That's what she's worked on. She's still on vaccine task force for the measles. And why she is actually in this division in the first place makes absolutely no sense to me. She does not belong there. She does not have any qualifications except for the fact that she would take people off of the trail of vaccines when they're looking at neurodevelopmental disabilities. That is why she's there.
So how do we get Dr. Meanie Delman off? I just can't believe she's called that, but
Well, first of all, I would call your elected official and complain. There is no qualification in this person's resume or CV that would say she has any. There's no reason to have her there. Sure, if they need somebody to go out and promo vaccines, great. She's the person for the job. But to take care of her kids, it is an absolute, total, complete affront. It cannot happen. You should, I've already put this out on social. I want to see people storm social. Always tag at HHS at HHS or HHS Jim for Jim O'Neill, who's the acting director of the CDC. And make sure that your voices are heard. She needs to be gone. She cannot be in this position.
well, thank you for alerting us to that. And while we're talking about social media, so Brian, how do people follow you? Because you've got a great, you're great on X, I notice.
On X, yeah, Brian Hooker, PhD. Just add Brian Hooker, PhD on X. Also, you can follow me on Facebook and Instagram. Have not been deplatformed. I spent, some time in Facebook jail. I have the Facebook orange jumpsuit and everything. But also make sure that you're following Children's Health Defense, Children's HD, and CHD TV Live.
Yes, please
Absolutely
follow us.
wonderful. Make sure that if you're able to, you repost our content, and please, please, please always comment.
Absolutely. Brian Hooker, thank you for being on so early this morning with this fantastic news. Congratulations. And thank you to all the authors that took part in that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Polly. Have a great day.
You too. All right, everybody. Well, now we're going to be talking about picky eaters, and mainly in the unvaccinated community. Good morning, Julie Matthews, my long-term friend.
Good morning, Polly. So good to see you.
It's so good to see you as well. That was fascinating, wasn't it, listening to
It
Brian?
was absolutely.
How long have we been doing this? And I know I'm not going to go on this for too long, everybody, but Julie and I have been in this game a long time.
Yes.
Right, so I started doing this show with Paul Thomas where we ask the questions from the unvaccinated community. So by that, obviously, we mean the children are unvaccinated and the parents still have, issues. Their children do not have autism or any of the things that we see in the vaccinated community, but a lot of the boys, is what I'm hearing, they turn around 3 or 4 and the parents completely in control before that. And they're now refusing to eat like meat or anything the parents, and I mean, screaming dabby tantrums as well.
Mm.
So we brought you on. What do you
All
think?
right. Well, I work a lot with picky eaters in the clients and families I work with. About 80% are picky eaters. So hopefully we can come up with some good thoughts and support for these families.
And so for the parents that are worried that their children are not getting any meat, is that a problem? Do 4-year-old boys or 3 or 4-year-old boys need meat?
Well, they need protein. So if they can get it in some form, that is going to be important because protein is what helps them grow. So all growth requires protein. So we want to get some. Now, there are other sources of protein. I do think that for the most part, animal protein is a great way to go because it has all of the essential amino acids. But if it's not meat, could it be eggs? Could it be some other form? I mean, it can be plant proteins, but like I said, since animal proteins have all the essential amino acids, it's a good way to go. But we can try to come up with maybe some creative ways to get meat if it's something that their family does eat, but they're just not eating it, maybe because of texture or something else.
Yeah, is that what it is? Why do these children suddenly reject? And Julie, it's a lot of parents saying this.
Yes.
Why do they suddenly just reject? I mean, one mother was telling me her son started off with a pork or lamb chop or something and loved meat, and then just suddenly like gagging.
Oh.
So what is that?
Well, I mean, there are a couple things. There is a natural process that does happen around that age. It's a developmental stage. It doesn't last too long, but there is common picky eating around that age. But if these families are saying, there's this increase in this that is beyond what they've seen before, or in this case, much different than ooh yuck I don't like it, then we have to look at what else could be happening. And one of the more common things I see at play can sometimes be texture. Meat is very chewy, and sometimes kids, they really gravitate towards that. If you think about like a potato chip, for example, it's very easy to chew. I mean, it's crunchy, but crackers, things like that, they're not chewy. They don't take a lot of effort to chew and then swallow them. So sometimes it can be that. So it could be a matter of finding a way to get it in. So if they aren't allergic and they like eggs, could you eat those? Is it? There actually are like potato chip like textures of protein chips that are made with mainly with meat. So there are some brands out there on Amazon that are like chicken chips and things like that. That sometimes I had a grandma who had a grandson with a picky eater and would not eat meat, but loved those because we assumed it was because of the texture of it. So there's those types of ideas. If texture is the issue, you could do what I like to do is a pancake called chicken pancakes that are basically cooked chicken breast, raw eggs, blended up in a food processor. It makes a pancake-like batter, and then you can cook them into pancakes. Those are actually good because the texture is a lot fluffier and less chewy. So that's one possibility and one option for kids around protein.
So yeah, I mean, just saying that, I mean that makes sense. So, but you have a book that has all these recipes in, do you?
Yes, absolutely. My
I
book,
think we got a cover.
the Personalized Autism Nutrition Plan, actually has the chicken pancakes in it, and then a variety of other recipes as well. because, like I said, with the autism community, picky eating is very common, and actually developmental delays as well. So 75-80% of them. So all of the recipes I like to include are things that are going to be more kid friendly, better texture, vegetables with good texture, protein with good texture, things like that.
But yeah, and as we said, this is the unvaccinated community.
Exactly.
First of all, to people listening, we never said that your child was going to be perfect just because it didn't have vaccines, right?
That's
Um,
right.
so there's an element of the strong-willed boys who are just saying no, kicking up. And also, one mother was telling me that her son has started at a preschool or whatever and sees other people with lunch boxes with candy and all that kind of stuff in it. And then they're being sent in with this healthy food. So it's about being creative, do you think, as well? I don't know.
It is about being creative. And there are, I would say for those families, stick with it. That happened with my daughter. She did lose sauerkraut because they all said, ooh, gross. And then for a while, she wouldn't, at least at school, she wouldn't eat sauerkraut anymore. But, you know, even then and years later, like, she still will not drink a soda because she just thinks it's awful, tastes terrible because of how sweet it is. So, stick with it. Yeah, there might be ways that they're influenced. And let's say it is, oh, everyone's having candy and they want to have something. Maybe there's a way you can find a reasonable compromise, whatever it might be. Whether is it freeze dried blueberries? Would that do the trick? Is it dehydrated, like dates, dried dates? Those are so sweet, like candy. Or are there occasions like birthday parties and things where you have to come up with a compromise that has some real sugar in it, but is a healthier version? So, you know, there are degrees, right? Artificial additives create a lot of challenges for a lot of people. So even, I hate to say this, I'll take my nutrition hat and put it aside for a second. Even if it's a lollipop, but if it's dye free and things like that, that is a better option. So there's always a better choice, and you have to figure out where you want to draw that boundary.
Someone's saying a supplement of ground organ meats. Never heard of such a thing. I don't know. Have you heard of that?
Yes, yes. So you can do like liver powder, things like that, and that is a way to get nutrients in, and it's a great way. I mean, it's going to have a flavor to it, so you have to figure out how you're going to mix it in, unless they'll do capsules. But for little kids, they're not going to do capsules, so you'd have to find a way to be creative, maybe something like a hamburger. Actually, hamburgers are a great way to hide liver.
Yeah, I mean, any child, most adults actually gag at the side of liver, so you have to hide it.
Yeah.
So, so for the parent listening, the reason I think why parents get so stressed about this is because a lot of people in our movement know that good food feeds the brain, as you said, the growth of the child. So, what are some foods that they need to be really thinking about getting into the brain? Because again, we're getting reports of ADHD type activity in the unvaccinated
Mm.
children. Is that because of food?
I think it could be a combination of a lot of things. There's a lot of screens and screen time and other ways that in our day our brain didn't, we went outside, we played, our brain had different stimulus than there is today. So I would think we'd want to look at the role of electronics and things like that. We also, and how much exercise, how much outdoor time they're getting, how much running around and things that they're doing, as well as what their food is like. As you were talking earlier with Brian Hooker about how much glyphosate, how much toxins and pesticides or mold or things are they getting exposure to, but also food, because uh, our soil has lost nutrient density over time, and even the choices that many families choose might not be the most nutrient dense choices. So I think it's a combination of a lot of different things. But one of the great things that you do have control over in your own kitchen is the food that you make for your children, and hopefully that you can get them to eat. And so that is a place that you have a lot of opportunity. And so your question, What kind of foods are important? Well, we talked about protein. So, how can you get some protein? I would say try to be creative. Look for ways that you can get it. If your kids don't love protein, try to figure out what is it they like, what texture do they like, and what don't they like. Some kids need everything to be separate. They don't want casseroles and things all mushed together. Others like the texture of something that's softer and maybe like a stew, and maybe it would have different foods all mixed together. So you have to kind of figure out what your child likes. Is there a texture they like or don't like? Do they tend to like ground meats, minced meats better than, let's say, something whole like a chicken breast or a steak or something? So try to figure that out. Do your best to provide some options around that. And then, whole plant foods. So hopefully lots of vegetables, fruits. If they're not allergic to nuts and seeds, those are some options. You said things that are good for the brain, good fats, fish oils, getting some good olive oil, avocados. Now, if we're dealing with picky eaters, avocados may not. Actually, I do know kids that do like avocados. So again, it does come down to that texture. So I would say those are some of the foods that I would look towards, and then just finding them in a way they like. Some kids don't like wet foods. So think of like a cut up mango is almost like, it's like wet, and I wouldn't say slimy, but we'll just use that for lack of a better word. Whereas a blueberry is dry on the outside and they can pick it up with their fingers. So start to think about the foods that they like, the textures they like them in. Do they like something like a smoothie because they can drink it with a straw? Do they like juices? Can you make a homemade vegetable juice? Those types of things. So that's the way I would think if I had a child that I was looking for ways to get some good foods in.
And Julie, what do you think about the food pyramid that Bobby's put out? Let's see if we can get that up on screen. I mean, at the bottom is grains and cereal. Well, a lot of kids wake up and have that's their breakfast.
Yes, yes. Well, I like that this is showing a smaller amounts of that. I think that that really turns the pyramid around a lot from where it was before, where it was a main big section of the daily meal. I tend to like the top of the pyramid, where we're looking at vegetables, we're looking at meats, we're looking at fish, oils, those kinds of things. And then using things like whole grains and foods like that more sparingly. This is actually very similar to my Nourishing Hope food pyramid, but my pyramid is just more pyramid shaped, where the grains are at the top, but they're a small little portion. I actually like this, where the grains are a small little portion, but they're at sort of at the bottom of the pyramid, showing I think the point there is still the same. Small amounts of these whole grains with lots of fiber and things like that. Now, some people won't do grains at all. Maybe they don't tolerate them. So I think it all depends on the individual. Personalized nutrition, I feel, is very important. Some people, if they're going to do grains, they're not going to do gluten grains. Some people might not do dairy, but if we're going to do those, I really do like the really focusing more on good, healthy protein. I think that really is a really solid principle.
Well, Julie, it's been fantastic having you on this morning. Thank you so much for your advice. And to everybody out there, I really do recommend, don't worry about the word autism in Julie's book, because actually it's for all children. So again, Julie, tell people where they can get your book and where they can follow you as well. And
Yes, absolutely. And thank you for that, Polly. Actually, the subtitle is Nourishing Hope for Kids with ASD, ADHD, and Anxiety. So you're absolutely right. It is not just for autism. They can find it anywhere books are sold, Amazon. They can find it at our website, Nourishing Hope, and Personalized Autism Nutrition Plan.com.
Excellent. Julie, my favorite nutritionist, thank you so much for being here. And we hope, and if anyone has questions for Julie, do write into us and we'll get Julie back on to answer them. So write into us at, where do we write in? There we are, chd.tv/contact, and we'll get Julie back to answer some questions. Julie, thank you for being on this morning.
Thank you, Polly.
All right. Okay, now we're going to go to Christine. Good morning, Christine.
Good morning. How are you?
I am fine. Thank you for waiting so patiently. This is an extraordinary story. Let's go back and talk about your daughter. How, how was she when she was born and all her years up? Because this didn't happen until she was 16.
So basically, she was very lively, bubbly, happy. When she was born, she was healthy, scored 9.9 on her APGAR. She just loved people and loved, being involved with different activities. And she was just, and the big thing is she was communicating. So she would, talk to us in sentences, mommy, I want this, I want that. And, then we had her physical. And that date was 7/23 of 2020. She had her second meningitis shot, which was, it says here, it was the MCV4 vaccine. I believe there's 4 strains in that one. And she had one prior, but she didn't get a reaction like this one. And so what happened after she got that was, I tell people the easiest, simplest way to describe it is that light switch went off. Her light went off. And she was laying in bed all the time, literally bedridden. She wouldn't want to get out of bed. She was very weak. She wouldn't eat. She looked pale. There's so many signs that we overlook, looking at our hands. Do they feel warm? Do they feel cold? How do the eyes look? The skin, rash. She had rashes. She was just not herself. And it was clear, that something serious had happened. And that's when I stood there and I said, oh my gosh, what is going on? And it's like your whole world just stops and you're in that pause and you just say, okay. I knew then that I had to do something. It was urgent and I had to do something completely different. And so that's when I started actually going to a naturopath and we started doing testing. When we did her testing, and the testing was done in that October, and she was high in, right here, she was high in alumina, there was antimony, there was several, there was actually silver, tin, titanium, all these things, a little bit of, there was some lead, mercury, barium. So we were like, what is going on? That's a hair test. And that's specific how you have to perform that. And so once we got a grip on that, we just started going, analyzing everything, our products then. Once something like this happens, you have to look at everything to detox the body. It's not just, okay, no more vaccines. We knew then that we had to make a drastic change because it's in your body. How do you get it out? How do you reverse it? How do you help her? And so, now we learned a lot. Before the show, we were talking that we had her, oh my goodness, the Great Plains Laboratory had a whole bunch of stuff. Her glyphosates were at 100%. This is a few years after that. And we're finding out that they're in vaccines now. I never knew that. So as a mom, I have 4 children. I had 5 vaccines. My son, who was 36, had 22. My daughter, she's 22, had 35. That was the last vaccine our family ever did because, it even went beyond that. Our beloved animals, passed away after the rabies vaccine. And then with that, once you start asking the questions, you go to specialists and then they say, oh, we often see this around the time that the animals are vaccinated. It's like, you feel like you're in the Twilight Zone. So I say to people, we're so busy living that, in that 9 to 5 grind. I get it. You're busy working and just trying to get through the day and to pay your bills and everything. But you have to stop and analyze what is going on. Why are we trusting everybody around us to have those answers? And a lot of times I know the doctors don't even have the answers. The nurse doesn't have the answers. Have they looked at the inserts of the vaccines? A lot of them haven't. So when you stop, all of us, okay, collectively need to stop and say, okay, what are we doing? Is this right for the children? These are our children. We're supposed to be protecting them. I could tell you, if I were to do this all again, there would be absolutely no vaccines, period. And I've grown and learned a lot since then. And but there are things that, and I say, people don't understand when you go to the pediatrician, they do the vaccine and have you sign a consent. Don't sign it. We used to live in New York and they wouldn't allow you to attend school without them. And so, who's really going to be bold and stand up and say, well, then I'm going to keep my kid home? No one really did that then, but they are now. There's a huge shift. And so now the parents are saying, I have family members now. They're like, no, we're homeschooling. We don't want any of that nonsense. So you're so loving to other people. Stop with yourself. We have to just stop, take a deep breath, really look at what we're doing. I say, to begin with, we need these vaccines to heal or whatever, was the disillusion. And I say, well, look at it this way. If you get a cut, it heals, right? So your body heals itself. You don't need anything else. So, now what we do for her to help, and it takes a lot of time, you're talking years of, all these toxins have to be reversed and you have to be patient. It's not an overnight thing. You have to soak, the feet. That's what we do with her. That's huge, even to balance out hormones. We're into seeds, organic. Everything is at least organic. And I make my own food, so I know what's in it. I actually use imported flours because they don't use all the glyphosates. I mean, I talked to I think she was a farmer, and she said, yeah, once we harvest all the crops, like the wheat and stuff, she goes, they spray them again with all the chemicals. I said, well, why would they do that? That doesn't make any sense, right? So it's just, it's everywhere. So, for the parents, I mean, you really need to think about this, because at the rate we're going, I feel like everyone's going to be autistic in a way if we don't do something. I mean, it's getting, that, to that point. So,
can you describe, so Rachel's now 22. Can you describe what her life's like now that she's had this awful reaction to the meningitis vaccine, and how it was before? So what she's lost from taking this vaccine?
What she's lost, that spark. I mean, everything has changed. We can't just go to the store. That's her in that picture. She needs help to walk. She never needed that help. She could walk on her own. She was nice and strong, so bubbly and everything. Now she just doesn't want to be near people. You can't just go to the store. You're going to need some help with that. They're an elopement risk, right? They could just take off. She doesn't communicate. She can have an outburst whenever. You're sleeping is changing for the whole family. They're up all night. A lot of times they're up all night. Just communicating. You can't just ask them. It's like now she gazes and she'll just sit there and she'll just start rocking. It's like all these autistic behaviors. I mean, we actually had somebody, because we have guardianship, which is very important for the parents, because you want to make sure that, you know, they're safe and you have those rights, you know, for your child. Because if you don't take guardianship, you know, something happens and they're in the hospital, you're not going to have a say. And they're going to try to communicate with your child who is non-communicative. It doesn't make any sense, but that's how it is. But the court visitor, she said, you know, your daughter has autism, right? So, I mean, you could tell. But everything is different, from just sitting down to having, you can't go out to restaurants, you're not sleeping normal. You can't go to functions anymore because they just don't want to attend and they're going to have an outburst. So there's a lot to something like this. It's not just, oh, well, you know, we could just get by. You're trying to do whatever you can at that moment. And the important thing I would say is they need to feel safe and secure in their environment, because that's going to keep them calm. And you need to be very loving and patient. That's honestly the best medicine right there. And then you need to analyze everything. You need to analyze your products. You need to analyze your food, especially your air. We have air filters now. It's a little dry where I am, so we have humidifiers. We use aromatherapy. Everything is natural. And it's really quite easy. There's just so much has changed. You can't even, if, you know, go for a walk. I mean, it depends on their state of being and their temperament for that day. If they don't want to do something, you're not making them do it. Okay. It's different. It's very different. Like I said, she's my fourth. So
Christine, what did you used to think of people that didn't vaccinate before this happened to you?
Well, I actually have a niece that isn't. And my sister said to me, I said, oh, are you going to vaccinate? She said, no. She said, we don't believe in that. But, you know, I'll tell you the truth. Had somebody said to me, and of course it's, you know, nothing, I don't put the blame on anybody, but the fact of the matter is, if somebody said, well, you realize that there's like all these chemicals and toxins, and showed me the list. I mean, we didn't know back then, and no one was talking about it. And kudos to you guys, because this is just wonderful. But like the glyphosate, I didn't know. Had somebody said to me, this is what you're going to get, do you consent to that? I would be like, oh, absolutely not. I trusted the establishment. Who would ever think that they would put anything toxic in a vaccine or anything that's going to go in our body? So now I question everything. I don't trust. You have to earn my trust. And I question everything. And
Christine, I'm so sorry you had to learn the same way that I had to learn, and everybody with an autistic child like I've got did as well. It's tragic, the whole thing, but we're so grateful to you now. Is there a place that people can follow you?
Well, I'm not one for social media, because I'm so, you know, like now I'm home taking care of her, right? So that totally changed everything. But I do have a website, christinemavra.com, and I will be posting a lot of solutions for parents on there, and even my own recipes and stuff. And I'll tell you the truth, where they can get some help too. I love Udemy, that website, that platform for learning. It's udemy.com. I'm not affiliated at all. I am a learner. And they have a lot of great information on how to deal with behaviors and everything on there. And it's so reasonably priced. For $20, you get a great, you know, course on how to deal with your child. So there's
I've
a
never
lot.
heard of that one, but it's always nice to have
Wonderful. Yeah.
viewers' recommendations. But Christine, thank you so much. Christine, thank you so much. And do give our love to Rachel.
Yes,
And
thank you.
We're sorry that
Thank you.
happened. And thank you
Thank
for
you.
coming on and warning us and telling us her story. We too
You're
so
welcome.
appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
All right, everybody. Well, so now we're going to end the show, but tomorrow you've got Michael Caine coming on, and he's got some great news and some great show for you tomorrow. And I'll see you on Wednesday. So pray big, stand firm, never settle, and we'll see you soon. Your name, please.
Hi, my name is Jane Wax.
And so this is a story about your mum during COVID.
Yes.
Right, go ahead and tell us.
Okay, so it kind of started in Sacramento in 2019. She had to go there for a scheduled surgery. She wasn't able to have the surgery because she had pneumonia, so they kept her for a few days. After that, she was discharged to another skilled facility there in Sacramento. And that's when we learned that patients were going to be discharged, COVID patients were going to be discharged from the hospitals directly to all skilled facilities or whomever wanted to receive them. So we were very concerned of that because my mom does have COPD, asthma, diabetes, so we just knew based on what we were being told that she would die. So we were literally making funeral arrangements just based on that, you know, it's her time's coming, right? So from there, we got her back down to the valley. She had to go to the hospital again with pneumonia. She went to another facility that was a lower level of care, which was too low for her. She really needed that extra assistance. Well, this is where I start wondering and like, what's going on? Besides, that was weird that they're going to discharge patients to all the facilities, considering how infectious the virus was. That didn't make any sense to me. So now we're back to Modesto, and she's in a facility. And she's there for a while. You know, at this point we can't go in and see them anymore. She's isolated. She's in a wheelchair, so she can't get up and move around. So basically they're just in bed all day, which was just terrible and torturous, as needless to say. But the most alarming thing was my mom, who's very much aware. Like, she's the kind of person that's going to speak up for, oh, that lady needs help, or can get around in her little wheelchair as fast as she can move around. So she's very vocal, and she called and said, Jane, they've moved me out of the room I was in, and they moved me into a room with a lady that's really sick. So I thought, well, maybe she's tired, and maybe no, why would they do that? But so that happened multiple times, moving in and out. So I call and speak with staff and say that I'm concerned. So far my mom hasn't tested positive, and I understand that you test weekly. Well, what they were then doing is moving folks from, instead of testing them, they did a rapid test. So on Wednesday, then the test results would come back Thursday. They were moving people around based on the previous week's results, which that didn't make any sense to me. But at the same time, when I'm talking to an administrator, my friend at work, she overhears that, and her cousin is a nurse in El Dorado outside of Sacramento. And she had just been telling her mom, they are moving COVID patients and they're exposing people on purpose. They're infecting people on purpose. So I'm just like, what? So Rhonda and I talk about that, and she's giving the perspective from her cousin, who's the nurse, and I'm seeing it from the patient perspective. So I talked to the administrator. I even talked to staff, what's your protocol when you move people in? How do you sterilize the room? I don't know much about medical. I'm an accounting by nature, my background. So none of this is making any sense. It's not adding up. So I talked to the administrator. Basically, it was due to logistics is why they were moving people around. So I had enough. By the third time, I'm thinking, okay, this isn't going to work. My mom is going to be seriously injured from this. Besides, she already is, the whole psychological part of it. So I send what I think is just an email to the company, and the next morning I get a call from Beverly from Public Health, which I thought, well, Beverly, I didn't report this to Public Health. What's going on? If I hadn't seen it said Public Health, I would have been worried, like, how did you have access to that information? But she was great. She was like, we already have a team there. They should have never moved your mom. She would have been what would be called the green zone. And then she described, like, I think there was like a yellow, orange, I don't know, but my mom should have never been moved in or out of the room that she was in. So I was like, oh, well, that's interesting because that's what happened. So needless to say, my mom did get COVID, and that's when my brother and I are especially like, are we gonna, Mom, do you want to be cremated? Or it was very open. She just knew, okay, I guess I'm gonna die. That's what they're saying. Well, she didn't. I mean, I'm still surprised. She's 80 now, but I'm surprised that she's still here. But that's not even like the worst part of the story. Then we're moved, moved to Turlock. She gets discharged from that facility, goes to the hospital, goes to a facility in Turlock, and then basically she can't leave her room unless she gets the COVID shot.
Says who?
Right, the administrator. So I'm talking with them saying, wait, this doesn't make sense. She had COVID. I can show that she had that. She recovered from it. Doesn't she have immunity? I don't really know from. they're like, no, if she's going to participate in the activities. This part of the conversation I didn't have in front of my mom because I know that if she had heard that I was concerned, then she may have been even more affected from that. So I left it up to my mom, and she was asking me, well, what should I do? And I was like, Mom, I really don't know. Like, I try to read as much as I can and figure stuff out, but I really don't know, Mom. And she goes, well, I'll just take it. It is Johnson & Johnson, so it should be fine. And it's just one. Like, but now, I mean, if I knew what I know now, of course I would have been like, no, Mom, we'll just figure it out. You can't. But she took it, you guys, and the worst she's ever been in her life. She could not lift her head. She was dying. And it's weird because I see her twice a week or at least once a week, but this was during tax time, so kind of a hard time for me. So I missed her that week and a half. So for 9 days, you guys, she was in her bed. She couldn't lift her head. The day that she called and talked to me, she was still really raspy. And I'm like, Mom, what's going on? Are you okay? You know, I've called and checked on you because you're not answering my calls. She goes, no, I was dying. And it was the shot. So it was her telling me, no, Janie, it was the shot immediately as soon as I got the shot. And so it took a long time. I mean, she's still, I don't know that she's 100%, and if some of the other issues that come up, but what I'm blown away that she survived that because she really shouldn't have. But
What year was it she got the Johnson & Johnson?
So 2019 is when she was in that, so it would have been 2020.
And they haven't made her have another one?
No, well, she would refuse that. So now what we've noticed is that, so my mom used to get the flu shot, the pneumonia shot. So when she was getting the pneumonia shot, the last one she got of that, she would get pneumonia. Didn't have pneumonia before that, and she does have COPD and asthma and all these breathing issues. But now that she hasn't had any of the flu shots for now several years, she has not had that. And we're kind of doing our own little study. Like the facility she's at now in Sonora, there's maybe 20 people there. All of them had had the COVID and the flu shot, and my mom's the only one that's not getting the flu or not getting COVID. So it's just, you know, we're just doing our own little analysis. We're trying to read as much as we can. And sadly, my mom's story, you know, she survived, and I don't know, one day when she does decide to check out, you know, I'm sure it'll be glorious for her, maybe, but she's endured all this. But during all this time, I have so many friends, you know, I kind of did a spreadsheet to try to organize my thoughts, and there's just so many like family members or close friends that have either died or have been seriously injured, and what they have in common is that they had one of those shots. So I hope that people, before they even consider any shots, that they do the research and not rely on others to, you know, figure stuff out, because that, you know, our family. And my poor mom, the worst part is just seeing her not being able to leave her room and being literally locked in her room, waiting for someone to come in and change her. Because like I said, she can't get up and walk. So she'd literally have to soil herself and then wait and wait. Yeah, and then not coming in. I didn't realize that the doctors, like when I said, what did the doctor say, Mom? Well, he stood at the door, and how could you even gather any information from that? I don't know, but it just was sad, and it should have never happened. But the fact that it's still happening is concerning, and that I still have friends that it's clearly that, you know, my one friend, he's had his foot amputated from blood clots, and the wife, she had blood clots and some other issues, and she died. And, you know, she was 64, and my cousin died the day before her. He had
took the shots?
Yeah. He had an early onset of accelerated dementia, I think they called it. And then my other friend that died the day after, she was, you know, 65, macho tough girl though, camper, outgoing person. But then you could see with every booster that she was getting, and I'm like, Kim, what are you doing? You know, and that was just sad to watch.
So she died?
Yes, she did.
Of what?
She died, there's so many things, liver, and then her organs shut down.
Awful.
Yeah.
Awful.
So, yeah, it is. So that's basically all I wanted to share. And
you've got a few names to write on the bus.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I guess so. Oh, that's sad. Yeah, but that's true. Oh, that is sad.
It is sad.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for telling your story.
Okay. Thank you, Polly.
This and all CHD TV programming is made possible by generous support from viewers like you. Please consider making a contribution today to keep our programming going strong. Thank you.